A young emperor, brutally murdered. What went wrong with Gaius Julius Caesar, better known as Caligula? It's quite a story. We're then heading east to meet the Parthians and through the Kushan Empire to China, where the Han dynasty has been restored. Time for a closer look at the Tao. In 19 AD, Rome is shaken by the death of Germanicus. Not only had Emperor Tiberius adopted him as his son and supposed successor, he was also a very successful and popular general. Gaius, who was Germanicus' youngest son and had just turned 7 when his father died, used to go with his parents on their military campaigns. It was there that Gaius got the cute but infamous nickname Caligula, which means little boots in Latin. Germanicus was a grandson of Mark Antony, who was once a political ally of Julius Caesar. Mark Antony is also remembered for his marriage with Cleopatra, who had been Julius Caesar's mistress. But before that, in 40 BC, Mark Antony married Octavia Thurina, who was a half-sister of Augustus, the divine emperor. This political marriage did not last very long, but it did produce 2 daughters. The youngest daughter, the beautiful Antonia, married General Drusus the Elder in 16 BC. Drusus was Tiberius' brother. Their mother was none other than Empress Livia. But Augustus was not their biological father, as the marriage of Livia and Augustus remained childless, and Livia's sons were from a previous marriage. We return to the union of Antonia and Drusus, which produces 3 children, Germanicus, Livilla, and Claudius. But the latter suffers from poor health and isn't taken very seriously. Then in 9 BC, when Germanicus was just 6 years old, disaster struck as his father died after he fell from his horse. Once an adult, Germanicus was adopted by his uncle Tiberius in 4 AD. Tiberius, in turn, was then adopted by Emperor Augustus. Himself an adoptee of Julius Caesar, Augustus had arranged this, so that Germanicus would at least become second in line of succession. Because after Augustus had lost 2 grandsons, he may well have seen Germanicus as his successor. But Empress Livia seemed to prefer her son Tiberius over her grandson Germanicus. Thus, it's Tiberius who becomes the new emperor in 14 AD. But Germanicus' star is rising. Then, in 19 AD, Germanicus is sent on a campaign in Syria. There he apparently gets poisoned and dies at the age of 34. When the ashes of Germanicus arrive in Rome, all the people are grieving. Except for Emperor Tiberius and his mother Livia, whose absence is rather suspicious. Germanicus was married to Agrippina, a granddaughter of Princeps Augustus. She used to join Germanicus on his military campaigns, but now she's stuck in Rome with their 6 children. Not afraid to stand up for them, she claims that her husband was murdered so that Tiberius' own son, Drusus the Younger, would become heir to the throne. All this brings Agrippina in conflict with Tiberius' close confidant Sejanus, the all-powerful leader of the Praetorian Guard. Sejanus acts as if he is protecting Tiberius' interests, but in secret he is plotting to become the emperor himself. To this end he manages to seduce Livilla, wife of Drusus Jr. and sister of Germanicus and Claudius. Sejanus gets her to slowly poison her husband, and in 23 AD, Drusus Jr. dies a seemingly natural death. The grieving Tiberius has lost his only biological child. In 25 AD, Sejanus wants to marry Livilla, to become a member of the Julio-Claudian dynasty himself. but Tiberius refuses his permission. Then Sejanus starts going after the supporters of Agrippina and her family with accusations of treason and sexual misconduct. It escalates rapidly after Livia's death in 29 AD. Tiberius forces the Senate to send Agrippina and her eldest son into exile, where he dies in 31 AD. In that same year, Sejanus is himself executed and replaced by Macro. Yet no mercy is shown to both Agrippina and her second son Drusus, who die of starvation in 33 AD. Caligula is now the only son of Agrippina and Germanicus still alive. This very notion must have been horrifying. But for him, Tiberius has other plans. When Caligula turns 18, he orders his nephew to join him on the island of Capri, where he and his imperial court have retreated since 26 AD. Tiberius' grandson Gemellus is also told to stay on Capri. Thus, in 31 AD, Tiberius has two rival candidates for his succession safely close to him. Caligula has no other choice than to study hard and please Tiberius. His talent for acting and public speaking serves him well in this respect. But the importance of a good relationship with Macro, now head of the Praetorian Guard, is also very clear to him. In 37 AD, Tiberius dies at the age of 77 and Caligula returns to Rome to become the new emperor. Shortly thereafter, Gemellus is executed. The prudent Tiberius left the empire as a whole, with its coffers well filled. But in Rome he was very unpopular. Thus, Caligula is welcomed with great enthusiasm, and at first, the young emperor does his best to fulfill his promise. One of his first acts is to return the ashes of his mother Agrippina and his brother Nero to Rome. In this way, he highlights his imperial lineage. He also gains a lot of popularity by organizing big festivals and theater shows and investing heavily in major infrastructure projects. He even tries to maintain a good relationship with the Senate. Nevertheless, the upper classes distrusts his fondness for artists, slaves, and foreign kings. Perhaps Caligula identified with such people, seeing himself as a victim too of a ruthless power structure that had robbed him of so many of his dear family members. Unlike Tiberius before him, Caligula happily accepts whatever divine honor the Senate wants to grant him. With his peculiar sense of humor, he would even top that off by dressing up as a god, such as Mercury or Jupiter. In Rome, the young Emperor Caligula may finally have found his freedom, but he still doesn't feel safe at all. Especially after he unexpectedly recovers from a serious illness. Even Macro, his important ally with the Praetorian Guard, loses his confidence and is forced to commit suicide in 38 AD. The young emperor doesn't trust anyone except his own family members, especially his three sisters, as well as his uncle Claudius, who is considered to be harmless. His relationship with Drusilla is especially close. Unfortunately, she dies in 38 AD. The other two sisters are sent into exile a year later on suspicion of treason. Allegations that Caligula maintained sexual relations with his sisters arose only decades later, and should be regarded as political propaganda more than anything else. After all, accusations of insanity and sexual perversity have always been commonplace in politics. Which is not to say that Caligula didn't abuse his absolute power in many ways. And now, things are going more and more in the wrong direction. As his relationship with the Senate gets worse, Caligula famously declares that even his horse would make a better senator. Some of his opponents come off with suicide. In that way they can at least keep their wealth for their families. But if a death sentence is imposed after a trial, the state inherits those assets. In other words, they belong to the emperor. There are of course several other ways too, to humiliate members of the wealthy class and strip them of their money. But at a certain point they get fed up, and in 41 AD, Caligula is murdered by 2 tribunes of the Praetorian Guard. His wife Melonia Caesonia and their little daughter Julia are also assassinated, upon which the Senate declares its desire to restore the Republic. But the members of the Praetorian Guard who remain loyal to the emperor disagree. They see this as a threat to their own position, and on the same day, they appoint Uncle Claudius as the new emperor. If the stories are to be believed, Claudius was found hiding behind a curtain to escape the bloody assault. The Romans were constantly at war with Celtic and Germanic tribes. But the Parthian Empire to the east was able to force the Romans into a more diplomatic relationship. In 53 BC, the Parthians had already defeated a Roman invasion force. And in 36 AD, it was Mark Antony's turn to suffer a painful defeat. The Parthians were of Scythian origin, but they had fully embraced Greek language and culture. Its favorable location connecting west and east brought the Parthian Empire trade and prosperity. Not just goods were distributed along these routes, but all kinds of ideas and religions as well. The same was true of the emerging Kushan Empire even further east. This empire was founded by the Uazi, a nomadic people of Indo-European origin. Originally, they inhabited an area near China where they maintained very good relations with the Han. Perhaps for this reason, the Uazi were driven out by the Xiongsu. United under their king Kujula, they managed to establish a powerful empire further west. Together with the Parthians, they played an important role in enabling the Silk Road to be a link between west and east. Trade with China must have been a lot less during Wang Mang's reign, but in 25 AD, the Han dynasty was restored after Liu Xiu became Emperor Guangwu of Han, as we saw in a previous episode. We also talked about Confucianism as one of the 3 teachings that have shaped Chinese culture over the centuries. The other 2 are Buddhism and Taoism. To get some idea of what Taoism is about, we end with a few quotes from its most important text, the Tao Te Ching.
The Tao is the mother of all things in the universe. The Tao gives birth to 1. 1 gives birth to 2. 2 gives birth to 3. And 3 gives birth to all things. They come in from the dark and embrace the lights as the moon goes down and the sun goes up. Balanced by the flow of infinite emptiness, like yin and yang. In this world, we all know beautiful things, and that's why there is ugliness too. We know good from bad, because there is bad. Therefore, something and nothing come from each other. Difficult and easy accomplish each other. Long and short define each other. High and low arise from each other. Notes and tones harmonize with each other. Before and after follow each other. The way of the Tao is acting without doing, working without striving, tasting without sensing. To consider the small as large, the few as many, and to confront the unkind with kindness. When a government seems lacking, people are simple and sincere. When a government interferes with everything, it all goes wrong.
See you in the next decade.